Greetings, everyone. It's been a while as usual. I will get used to this, being able to do this um, consistently. So, I'll be 49 on the 19th of this month, and I've been just trying to remain positive and hopeful that what I want will come into fruition. And I wanted to say to the ladies specifically that one of the things that I can tell you that I've learned, which is, and I think I've said this in previous videos, which is to really love yourself. That I firmly believe, and I believe that I've said it before, that the person that you are looking for is looking for the authentic you. And I think getting to a place in your life where you really are comfortable. Um, it goes without saying that there are people who are going to love it and agree with it, and there are people who are not going, they're going to hate it, and they're going to disagree with you. Um, all things are within reason, but outside of all of the headlines of things that is happening, from the wildfires to flooding to states and countries that are now depleted of water, farming. And this isn't negative stuff. This is stuff that is actually happening. So when I say negative, it is negative in that um, the experience in itself, the things that are happening, does affect us or someone else. That ultimately, um, it is a negative thing, but I think we're just in a place as everyone can agree that there's just some things that we can't fix at this point. And I get up every day, like a lot of people, and I have to make a conscious decision about how I move, and it's never easy. It's always very difficult for me. But one of the things that I have come to understand about myself is because I'm specific, then I am different than any other woman, and every other woman and any other man can say they're obviously different from um, another person. One of the things that I know is that I become comfortable in what my triggers are. Knowing what they are. I have been comfortable in knowing what I grew up experiencing and how that has affected me as a woman and what that now looks like in my life. I am okay with the things that other people are not okay with because I know that all of my experiences were real, so to speak. Um, they were organic up until a certain point. And I think I'm trying to say, as it happened to me, I realized that out of that came me. Um, and I've stopped beating myself up over things that um, I can't change. I stopped beating myself up over the fact that there are things that I wish I would have a better response to, and I do not. The response that I have is deep seated in me, and it's very difficult to behave my way out of it. But one of the things that I'm grateful for is the ability at this point to accept there are certain things about me that I know at this point in my life that I'm not able to extract. And I am happy. Um, it doesn't mean that I don't have bad days. It doesn't mean that when there are moments I don't call someone to vent. That's not what I mean. I mean, overall, like in my spirit, I've had to learn and be okay with me because ultimately I want to have a peace. And I think that that can be very difficult depending who you are. And I talked about in one of my first videos that one of the things that I am going to do is I'm going to be honest about how I've developed, who I am, and what that really looks like for me, and hoping that somebody else can. I don't want anybody to mimic or emulate um, things like my channel isn't about influencing in the idea that that's my intent. In terms of influence, the only thing that I want to do is to um, talk about how I came to a joy outside of everyday obstacles, trials, tribulations, struggles, moments when I cry, moments when I call to vent to my friends or family. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about an everyday thing that I have to deal with, like we all have to deal with. And so I'm learning that I'm allowed that. And when I go through the world and people are going through things, or I may catch them at a moment, and I have to really understand that sometimes those things aren't about me. Not even sometimes, but people have their own lives and their own things. So many different things that I have to deal with. But what I've ultimately learned is that the knowledge of self, the love that I have for myself, really does have to come through in the end. And I have learned, I'll be again 49 on the 19th of this month, that now that I've come to a place where I'm happy and I'm not ashamed or embarrassed to say, there are things that I know for me that I need for me. And what that is for me is going to be different from for another woman, and even men. And I think that when we are really honest with ourselves about who we are, it really does make our lives a lot easier for a lot of people who already know that. It makes your life a have a lot easier. And getting to a point in my life and dealing in relationships and realizing that sometimes things aren't really about love or loyalty, in that I have a loyalty to myself to be sure that I'm not sacrificing the part of myself that allows me to stay sane, that allows me to stay centered, that allows me to know that you can love and care and want to be with someone, and ultimately they're just not good for you. I tell people all the time that the majority of marriages and relationships do not break up because people don't love each other and don't want to be there. It is because they have come to the realization that love really sometimes in some situations has less to do with um, being together, because people break up, marriage or otherwise, um, and it's not because they didn't love each other. It's not because they didn't want to be there. It's not because they didn't see this person and say, oh my God, I can see myself with this person. Um, each person determines what their limits are. And I think that being realistic about who you really are, because you can stand with 10 other women, and every woman has a different pressure point, threshold, tolerance level. It's things that you know that as you get older and as you have to share your life with someone, what are the things that may aggravate you that you know that you can deal with because it's really not that serious? I mean, for all of us, that's different. And so I've learned what those are for me, and I've accepted it, and I've stopped trying to adhere to anything other than that, because I began to realize that ultimately it'll be about who I am and my peace, and who I want to be with, and how I want my life to move and to evolve into. And I think that um, I need to get some shut eye. But I I'm loving myself. I'm loving growing into who I am. I'm loving the idea that I wake up and some days I have very insecure moments. I love the days when I wake up and I have really amazing moments and I'm loving myself. I enjoy the days now when I'm able to look at myself in my natural state and just be okay with it. I love the fact that I can now wear dresses and my body doesn't look like it did when I was in my early 20s. Well, before I had my son, and my stomach was flat as a board, but I'm still moving because I love myself so much now. I don't necessarily feel the need to put on a blazer to cover my stomach. Like, there are things that I'm becoming very much appreciative of. And so I would encourage any woman who is looking at this, and any man, um, to just appreciate yourself, appreciate who you are, appreciate the love that you have for yourself, and appreciate the fact and the idea that we all have the right and the ability to really see ourselves and not look at all of the things that make us cringe sometimes. Not the things that need to be worked on, but the things that make us cringe, and we're picking it apart, but learning just how to love ourselves in a way, um, that we never could before now. And with experience comes wisdom. With age comes self love and the ability to know that all of who you are will ultimately, um, it'll be all right, um, in terms of what's for you is for you. So, anyway, I'm going to get me some rest, and I want to say peace and blessings to everyone. And one thing I did learn about myself as well is that based on how I grew up, like I struggle with crowds. I struggle with being even in small groups and being in the midst of a I've just never been that way. I realized that even when I was younger, I was always attracted to the elders. I wanted to talk to them, but ultimately I've always been someone that was kind of off on the side to some degree. I'll talk and socialize and laugh at times and things like that, but my first nature is to kind of retreat, and I've become okay with that. I've had people say things and I understand it, and I thought to myself, I stopped trying to gather in how other people saw it, because I know deeply I don't mean any harm by it. I just realized that I'm peculiar in that way, and I'm okay with it. And I'm okay with it because I've always been that way. It just And this is what I mean about me telling you about my story and how I've grown into the point where there are a lot of people who look at me and say, oh, I don't see anything wrong with you, and there are other people who say, oh, but I'm okay with it now, to the point where I'm not concerned, not because I don't care, but because I don't, you know, do certain things that infringes or interferes upon anybody else's space. And I have come to realize that from the beginning, not only was this how I was, but I believe that this is how I was meant to be, that this is me. And I have to be okay and accepting of that, and not have to expect or assume that other people will see and understand that. And so that's a blessing for me, to be able to get to a place in my life in which I'm all right. No matter what, I'm all right. And understanding that there are certain things about me that just is, and the people that love me will understand. That's just Danita. She hasn't really changed much. That's just, she's always been that way. And I'm okay with it because I love myself. Um, I'm okay with how I am because I've always been this way, but it just took me now to be okay with the fact that people, when they've tried to extract that, I have come to understand that it's just a part of who I am. So, anyway, peace and blessings to everyone, and I will become more and more consistent. Um, anyway, you guys have a great night and a great holiday.